but says mail voting is the problem. Donald Trump has spent years warning America about mail-in voting, fraud, cheating, corrupt elections, but here's the part that deserves a closer look: Donald Trump votes by mail himself. So is that hypocrisy? Well, Trump's defense is actually more specific than simply saying, "My ballot is okay." And if we're going to call him out, we need to get his argument right first. Trump draws a line between two kinds of mail voting. On one side is a requested absentee or vote by mail ballot. That's what Trump has used in Florida. You request the ballot, election officials send it to you. You fill it out, you return it. Trump argues that's legitimate. But on the other side is what Trump has repeatedly attacked: universal mail voting, particularly systems where ballots are automatically mailed to registered voters without each voter first requesting one. And that's the distinction Trump wants you to remember. His argument is basically, "I requested my ballot. That's different." Okay, now let's examine that. This isn't theoretical. Trump has repeatedly used Florida's mail voting system. And Florida doesn't have to play word games about what it's called. The Florida Department of State calls the system vote by mail. Trump requests his ballot. The ballot gets mailed to him. Trump votes. He returns the ballot. His vote is counted. Ladies and gentlemen, that is mail-in voting. It's simply a particular form of mail voting that Trump considers acceptable. Now here's where I'm going to be fair to Trump. There is a genuine policy difference between these systems. A state can require every voter who wants a mail ballot to request one first. Other states can automatically send ballots to eligible registered voters under their election laws. Those aren't identical policies, so saying Trump opposes every form of mail voting while secretly voting by mail himself would oversimplify his position. His long-standing defense has been that requested absentee ballots can be secure, while broader automatic or universal mail ballot systems create greater opportunities for problems. Fine, that's Trump's argument, but now we get to the problem. Trump doesn't always carefully say, "I support requested absentee ballots, but oppose automatically distributed ballots." If that were consistently his message, this would be a much simpler debate. Instead, Trump has repeatedly used sweeping attacks against mail-in voting itself. That's where his rhetoric collides with his behavior. Because when you tell Americans that mail-in voting equals cheating, while you're simultaneously requesting a ballot through the mail, people have every right to ask, why is your mail ballot trustworthy but everybody else's deserves suspicion? That's the question. And here's another thing worth watching. Politicians sometimes talk about absentee voting and mail-in voting as though they're completely different technologies. They're not. An absentee ballot can be a mail ballot. You request it, they mail it, you complete it, you return it. The meaningful policy distinction isn't whether the Postal Service magically changes depending on who's voting. It's how the voter receives the ballot, what verification is required, and whether the ballot was requested or automatically distributed. That's a legitimate debate, so debate that. And this is why Trump's position on election legislation deserves scrutiny. Supporting stronger identification requirements doesn't automatically mean opposing mail voting. Trump can consistently say, keep requested mail ballots, but require stronger verification. There's nothing inherently contradictory about that. But he can't have it both ways rhetorically. If requested mail voting is safe enough for Donald J. Trump, then Americans deserve an explanation of exactly which mail voting practices are supposedly dangerous and why. Don't just scream, mail-in cheating. Tell us precisely what you're talking about. Requested ballots? Automatic ballots? Signature verification? Identification? Ballot harvesting? Drop boxes? Because those are different issues. The verdict: so is Trump a hypocrite for voting by mail? Not automatically. His defense is straightforward. Trump supports requested absentee vote by mail ballots like the ones he personally uses, while opposing universal or unsolicited ballots automatically mailed to voters. That distinction is real, but here's where the hypocrisy argument gets much stronger. Trump frequently attacks mail-in voting with language far broader than that distinction. You can't spend years teaching your supporters to associate mail-in voting with cheating, then quietly add an asterisk, except the kind Donald Trump uses. If requested mail ballots are legitimate, say that clearly. If they're secure enough for the president, say that clearly. And if some other form of mail voting is the problem, identify the exact practice and show us the evidence. Because Americans shouldn't have to decode whether mail-in voting is corrupt actually means some mail-in voting is corrupt, but mine is fine. That's not an election policy. That's a loophole in the talking point. So what do you think? Is Trump's distinction between requested absentee ballots and automatically mailed ballots reasonable? Or does repeatedly attacking mail-in voting while voting by mail himself make the whole argument hypocritical? Put your verdict in the comments. And if you want political claims separated from political spin, subscribe, share, comment below.